Hey, tonight we're going to talk about life in Birmingham during the 1890s when street gangs ruled the slums and the name Peaky Blinders struck fear into the hearts of ordinary folk. Spoiler, it wasn't great. You think your year was bad? Let me tell you about life in Victorian Birmingham. Hey, if you're enjoying these bedtime stories about weird history, I'd really appreciate a like or subscribe. I'm curious where you're listening from. Drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. Is it actually bedtime? I know. You're trying to fall asleep and I'm about to tell you about street gangs and violence, but trust me, it gets better. Now find a cozy spot, take a slow, deep breath and let your body sink into comfort as we journey back in time together. Congratulations, you've just woken up in Birmingham, England in the year 1890. The good news, you're alive. The bad news, your stomach is already cramping from hunger and the thin straw mattress you slept on has left painful red marks across your back. The cold seeps through your bones as you pull yourself up from the floor. Your fingers are stiff, making it hard to button your threadbare shirt. The single room you call home is dim, even though sunlight has been fighting to break through the grime-covered window for at least an hour. The air smells of coal smoke, damp clothes, and something worse coming from the chamber pot in the corner. You live in one of the thousands of back-to-back houses that fill Birmingham's slums. Your home shares 3 of its 4 walls with neighbouring houses, leaving only the front wall with a window and door opening to the outside world. 2 stories tall with a single room on each floor connected by steep, narrow stairs that creak with every step. The entire space is smaller than most modern bathrooms. Your lungs ache as you breathe in the sooty air. Birmingham is called the City of 1,000 Trades, and the factories and workshops that earned it that name belch black smoke into the sky day and night. The constant din of hammering and the clank of machinery forms the backdrop to your life, a symphony of industry that never really stops. The floor beneath your feet is bare wood, worn smooth by years of shuffling feet. No carpets here. Those are for the wealthy who live in the growing suburbs, far from the crowded streets where you and your kind struggle to survive. You share this tiny house with 5 others. Your parents, 2 younger siblings, and your grandmother. Privacy is a luxury you've never known. Your stomach growls again, more insistently this time. Breakfast will be meagre, a crust of bread perhaps with a smear of dripping if you're lucky. You think of the porridge your mother sometimes makes on Sundays, thick and filling, and your mouth waters. But it's Thursday, and there's no porridge today. Outside, you hear the calls of street vendors already making their rounds. Fresh fish. Get your fresh fish. The voice is familiar. Old Tom, who pushes his cart through your neighbourhood every morning. His fish isn't exactly fresh by the time it reaches these streets, but it's cheaper than what's sold in the markets closer to the city centre. You make your way down the narrow staircase, careful to avoid the 3rd step that threatens to give way under too much weight. Your father is already gone, off to the iron foundry where he works 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. The heat of the place has aged him beyond his 38 years, his face lined and his back permanently stooped. Your mother sits at the small table by the hearth, mending a pair of trousers by the weak light of the fire. She looks up as you reach the bottom of the stairs, her face tired but her eyes still kind. "There's bread on the shelf," she says, nodding toward a small wooden board where half a loaf sits. "Save some for the little ones." You tear off a chunk, smaller than you'd like, and chew it slowly to make it last. The bread is hard and slightly stale, but it quiets the growling in your belly for now. You wash it down with water from the jug on the table. The water tastes faintly of metal and dirt. It comes from the pump at the end of the street that serves all 20 houses in your court. As you eat, you think about the day ahead. You're 15 years old, and for the past 2 years, you've worked as a runner for Mr. Jenkins, the local pawnbroker. The pay is poor, but it's better than nothing, and Mr. Jenkins occasionally slips you an extra penny when business is good. Today, though, you're not going to work. You have other plans. 3 weeks ago, you were walking home from Mr. Jenkins' shop when a group of boys cornered you in an alley. They were from the next street over, part of a local gang that had been making trouble in the area. They took the 2 pennies you had in your pocket and gave you a black eye and a split lip for good measure. Your father had been furious, not at the boys, but at you for not fighting back. "You let them walk all over you," he'd said, his voice low and dangerous. "In this neighbourhood, you either stand up for yourself or you get crushed." You knew he was right. The streets of Birmingham are no place for the weak, and so when Thomas Mucklow approached you last week with an offer to join his gang, you'd been tempted. The Peaky Blinders, they called themselves. They controlled the streets around Small Heath, and membership would mean protection, respect, and maybe even a bit more money in your pocket. Your mother would be horrified if she knew what you were considering. She had enough to worry about without adding a son in a street gang to her troubles. But what choice did you have? The grinding poverty of your daily existence offers few paths forward, and none of them are easy. You finish your bread and grab your cap from the hook by the door. It's a flat cap like the ones worn by working men all over Birmingham, with a short, stiff peak at the front. You adjust it on your head, tilting it slightly to one side the way you've seen the Peaky Blinders wear theirs. "I'm off to work," you tell your mother, the lie bitter on your tongue. She nods without looking up from her mending. "Be careful out there," she says, the same words she says every morning. In these streets, it's never just a casual goodbye. The narrow alleyway outside your front door is already bustling with activity. Children run barefoot through puddles of questionable origin, while women hang washing on lines strung between houses, creating a patchwork canopy of faded fabrics overhead. The air is thick with coal smoke and the smell of too many bodies living too close together. Your court is a small square surrounded on all sides by back-to-back houses. In the centre is a water pump and a block of 4 privies that serve all 20 households. The ground around the pump is always muddy, and the stench from the privies is eye-watering, especially in summer. Thank God it's October now, and the cooler weather makes the smell almost bearable. You make your way out of the court and onto the main street. Here the world widens a bit, though not by much. The street is cobbled but poorly maintained, with horseshoe-shaped depressions and loose stones that make walking a careful business. Horse manure dots the way, and a dead rat lies in the gutter, already attracting flies despite the cool morning air. The street is lined with small shops on the ground floors of buildings, many with living quarters above. A butcher's shop displays meagre cuts of meat in its window, most too expensive for families like yours. Next to it, a baker sells day-old bread at half price, drawing a small crowd of women with worn shawls and tired eyes. You turn left, away from the city centre, heading deeper into the maze of slum housing that makes up this part of Birmingham. The buildings press in on either side, blocking much of the already weak sunlight. Shadows stretch across the street, making it seem later than it is. Your heart beats a little faster as you approach the Rainbow Public House on the corner of Adderley Street. This is where Thomas Mucklow told you to meet him, the same pub mentioned in that newspaper article about the Peaky Blinders attacking some poor soul who had the misfortune to cross their path. The pub is already open, though it's not yet 9 in the morning. Through the grimy windows, you can see men standing at the bar, starting their day with a pint or something stronger. Most of them are workers on their way to factories or mines, grabbing a drink to fortify themselves against the long hours ahead. Others are unemployed, drinking to forget their troubles or to warm themselves against the October chill. You hesitate outside, your hand on the door. Once you step inside, once you meet with Mucklow and agree to join his gang, there's no going back. Your life will change in ways you can only begin to imagine. A woman passes by carrying a basket of laundry on her hip. Her face is lined with hardship, though she can't be much older than 30. She gives you a curious look, but doesn't stop. In these neighborhoods, people learn to mind their own business. It's safer that way. Taking a deep breath, you push open the door and step inside. The pub is dim after the daylight outside, and it takes your eyes a moment to adjust. The air is thick with tobacco smoke and the yeasty smell of beer. Men's voices create a low rumble of conversation, punctuated by occasional bursts of laughter or the clink of glasses. You scan the room, looking for Mucklow. He's not hard to spot. He sits at a table in the corner with 2 other young men, all wearing the distinctive uniform of the Peaky blinders. Their jackets are well cut, their boots polished to a shine, their hair cropped short on the sides with a longer fringe that peeks out from beneath their flat caps. They look prosperous, confident, everything you're not. Mucklow sees you and nods, gesturing for you to join them. Your mouth goes dry, but you cross the room, weaving between tables and avoiding eye contact with the other patrons. "You came," Mucklow says, as you reach their table. It's not a question, but there's a note of approval in his voice. "Sit down." You slide onto a wooden chair, feeling the eyes of the other 2 blinders on you. One is George Groom, Mucklow's brother-in-law, a stocky young man with hard eyes and a reputation for quick violence. The other you don't recognise. He's younger, closer to your age, with a fresh scar running along his jawline. "This is the lad I told you about," Mucklow says to his companions. "The one who works for Jenkins." Groom looks you up and down, his expression sceptical. "Don't look like much," he says. "You sure he's got the stomach for it?" The question isn't directed at you, but at Mucklow, as if you're not sitting right there. Your face flushes with a mixture of embarrassment and anger. "I can handle myself," you say, the words coming out before you can stop them. Groom raises an eyebrow, surprised by your boldness. The corner of his mouth twitches, not quite a smile, but close. "We'll see," he says. Mucklow leans forward, his elbows on the table. "Here's how it works," he says, his voice low enough that only your table can hear. "You're with us now. That means you back us up when there's trouble. It means you do what we tell you when we tell you. In return, you get protection. No one touches what's ours." Your throat tightens at the way he says ours, as if you're property now, a possession of the Peaky blinders. But isn't that what you wanted? To belong to something stronger than yourself? "There's money in it too," Mucklow continues. "Not much at first, but it gets better. We control the betting at the racetrack, the protection for local shops. Even got our fingers in some of the factories now." The younger blinder speaks up for the first time. "Made more last month than my old man makes in half a year at the brass works," he says, pride evident in his voice. "You think about the 2 pennies a day you make working for Jenkins, about the constant hunger, the cold that seeps into your bones during winter, the humiliation of wearing the same patched clothes day after day. What do I have to do?" you ask. Mucklow exchanges a look with Groom, a silent communication passing between them. Then he turns back to you. "First things first," he says. "You need to look the part. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a few coins, sliding them across the table to you. It's more money than you'd make in a week at the pawnbroker's. Get yourself a proper jacket, good boots, a new cap too, one that fits right. His eyes flick to your own well-worn cap. And a haircut, short on the sides like ours. You stare at the money, hardly believing it's real. What's this for, you ask, suspicion creeping in. Nothing comes for free in these streets. Consider it an investment, Mucklow says with a thin smile. You can't be walking around with us looking like a beggar, can you? Bad for our reputation. The younger blinder sniggers, and even Groom cracks a small smile. Meet us back here tomorrow night, Mucklow continues. 8 o'clock, we've got business to attend to. The way he says business sends a chill down your spine, but you nod anyway. You're committed now, for better or worse. Don't be late, Groom adds, his tone making it clear that punctuality is not optional. You pocket the money, feeling its weight against your thigh, both a promise and a burden. Then you stand, unsure of what to do next. Mucklow nods toward the door. Go on then, he says. Get yourself sorted, and remember, you're a Peaky blinder now. Carry yourself like one. Outside the pub, the day has brightened somewhat, though clouds still hang low over the city. You stand on the pavement for a moment, the coins heavy in your pocket, your mind racing with the implications of what you've just done. Your father would probably approve. He's always believed in taking what you can from a world that gives nothing freely. Your mother, though, she'd be heartbroken. She's worked so hard to keep you and your siblings on the straight and narrow despite the temptations of the streets. But what choice did you have, really? This is Birmingham in 1890, and the gap between the haves and have-nots yawns wide as the canal that cuts through the city. For someone born in the back-to-backs, there are precious few ways to rise above your station. You set off toward the market, the money a reassuring weight in your pocket. Whatever happens next, at least you won't be hungry today. And in these streets, that's something to be grateful for. The market is a chaotic swirl of colour and noise, a stark contrast to the grey monotony of the surrounding streets. Stalls line both sides of the thoroughfare, selling everything from vegetables to cheap clothing to household goods. The air is filled with the shouts of vendors hawking their wares, each trying to outdo the others in volume and persuasiveness. You make your way through the crowd, careful to keep a hand on your pocket. Pickpockets are common here, and the irony of having your first payment from the Peaky blinders stolen is not lost on you. First, you head to a clothing stall where a heavy-set woman presides over piles of second-hand garments. Her sharp eyes assess you as you approach, taking in your worn clothes and calculating exactly how much you can afford to spend. "What can I get you, lad?" she asks, her Birmingham accent thick as molasses. "Need a jacket," you reply, trying to sound confident. "A good one, and some boots." Her eyebrows rise slightly at your request. Boys from the back-to-backs don't often ask for good anything. "Got money, have you?" she asks, suspicious. You nod, not volunteering any information about where it came from. She shrugs, apparently deciding it's none of her business, and turns to sort through a pile of jackets. "This might fit," she says, holding up a dark wool jacket that looks nearly new. Previous owner didn't need it anymore. She doesn't elaborate on why, and you don't ask. In these neighbourhoods, clothing often becomes available when its owner dies or goes to prison. The jacket is well made, with no visible patches or tears. It's better than anything you've ever owned. You try it on, surprised by how heavy it feels and how the rough wool scratches at your neck. "Looks good," the woman says, her eyes now on the potential sale rather than on you. 10 shillings. It's an outrageous price, and you both know it. 5, you counter. She scoffs. 7, and that's highway robbery on my part. You haggle for a few more minutes before settling on 6 shillings. Still more than you've ever spent on clothing, but less than the jacket is worth. Next come the boots. Another 3 shillings for a pair that pinch your toes but will stretch with wear. By the time you've finished at the market, you've spent most of Mucklow's money. Besides the jacket and boots, you've bought a new cap, stiff and black with a sharp peak, and paid for a haircut from a barber who set up his chair at the edge of the market. Your hair now mimics the style of the Peaky Blinders, short on the sides and back, longer on top so it falls over your forehead when you remove your cap. Looking at your reflection in a shop window, you barely recognize yourself. The transformation is striking. You look older, harder, more like someone to be reckoned with. Is this really you, or just a costume you're wearing, a role you're playing? The sun is beginning to set as you make your way home, casting long shadows down the narrow streets. The factories are letting out their day shifts, and the pavements fill with tired workers heading home to their families. Their faces are grimy with industrial dust, their shoulders slumped with exhaustion. Will you end up like them, working until your body gives out with nothing to show for it but a lifetime of poverty and a pauper's grave, or will joining the Peaky Blinders change your fate for better or worse? Your stomach growls, reminding you that you haven't eaten since that crust of bread this morning. You stop at a pie shop, the smell of hot meat and gravy making your mouth water. With some of your remaining coins, you buy 3 meat pies, 1 for yourself and 2 to take home to your siblings. It's an extravagance, but today feels like a day for breaking routine. The pie is hot in your hands, the pastry flaking as you take a bite. The filling is mostly gravy and vegetables, with just enough meat to justify the name, but it's the best thing you've tasted in months. You eat slowly, savouring each bite, watching the world go by from your perch on a low wall outside the shop. As darkness falls, the gas lamps are lit along the main streets, casting pools of yellowish light at regular intervals. The smaller streets and alleys remain in darkness, navigable only by memory and the occasional light spilling from a window or open door. You finish your pie and continue homeward, the remaining pies wrapped in paper and tucked inside your new jacket. The streets grow quieter as you move deeper into the residential areas, though not silent. These neighborhoods are never truly quiet. Even at night, there's always someone coming or going, voices raised in argument or laughter, the cry of a baby, the bark of a dog. As you turn onto your street, a figure steps out of the shadows ahead, blocking your path. Your heart jumps into your throat before you recognize the silhouette. It's your father, returning from his shift at the foundry. He stops when he sees you, his expression hidden in the gathering darkness. For a long moment, neither of you speaks. Then, "New clothes," he says, his voice giving nothing away. You nod, suddenly nervous. "Got a better job," you say, the lie coming easily now that you've had practice. "Working for a tailor in town. He gave me these as part of my pay." Your father says nothing for a beat, 2 beats, then he steps closer into a splash of light from a nearby window. His face is lined with fatigue, smudged with the black dust of the foundry that never fully washes away. His eyes move over your new jacket, the boots, the cap. "Tailor, eh?" he says, and you can tell he doesn't believe you. He's worked in Birmingham's factories since he was younger than you are now. He knows how the world works. Must be a generous one. You say nothing, holding his gaze. After a moment, he sighs, a sound of bone-deep weariness. "Be careful," he says, and you're not sure if it's a warning or advice. "Whatever you're mixed up in, be careful." Then he moves past you, heading toward home. You watch him go, his shoulders stooped, his gait slow and measured to conserve energy. This is what decades of hard labor does to a man. It grinds him down bit by bit until there's nothing left but exhaustion and resignation. You won't end up like that. You can't. The thought strengthens your resolve as you continue on your way. At home, your mother's reaction to your new appearance is less ambiguous than your father's. Her eyes widen when you walk through the door, taking in the transformation with a mixture of surprise and dismay. "What's all this then?" she asks, gesturing at your clothes. Before you can repeat the lie about the tailor, your younger sister rushes over, excited by the smell of the pies. "You brought food," she exclaims, her thin face lighting up with delight. You hand her one of the wrapped pies and she clutches it to her chest as if it might vanish if she doesn't hold it tight. Your brother, 2 years younger than you, approaches more cautiously, but his eyes are fixed on the remaining pie in your hand. "This is for you," you tell him, handing it over. "Share with Grandma." He nods solemnly, already unwrapping the pastry. The smell fills the small room, momentarily overwhelming the usual odours of damp and coal dust. Your mother watches this exchange, her expression softening slightly. Food is food, after all, and she's not one to turn away anything that will fill her children's bellies. Still, she gives you a look that says this conversation isn't over. Later, after the younger ones have gone to sleep, your sister and brother curled together on a pallet in the corner, your grandmother in the room's only proper bed, your mother corners you by the dying fire. "Tell me the truth," she says, her voice low to avoid waking the others. "Where did you get the money for those clothes, for the pies?" You consider sticking to your story about the tailor, but something in her eyes stops you. She deserves better than lies. "I've joined up with some lads," you say carefully. "They're looking out for me. Gave me money for new things." Her face pales in the dim light. "What lads?" she asks, though from her expression you think she already knows. You look down at your hands, unable to meet her gaze. "Just some lads from around Small Heath," you mumble. She's silent for so long that you finally look up. The disappointment in her eyes is worse than any anger would have been. "The blinders," she says. Not a question, but a statement. "You've gone and joined up with the Peaky blinders. You don't deny it. There's no point." She sighs, a sound so full of sadness that it makes your chest ache. "I thought we raised you better than that," she says. "Your father and I, we've worked ourselves to the bone to keep a roof over your head, to keep you fed. Also, you wouldn't have to turn to that." "And what has it gotten you?" you ask, a sudden flare of anger giving you courage. Look at Dar. He's worked honest every day of his life, and what does he have to show for it? Hands so twisted with arthritis he can barely hold his spoon, a back so bent he can't stand straight, and still we're one missed rent payment away from the street. Your mother flinches as if you've struck her, and immediately you regret your words, but you can't take them back now. "Is that what you want for yourself?" she asks softly. "To end up like the men they write about in the papers, in prison, or dead in some alley?" You have no answer for her. The truth is, you haven't thought that far ahead. You've been focused on the immediate benefits. The money, the protection, the respect, not the potential consequences down the road. "I'm being careful," you say finally, knowing how inadequate it sounds. "It's just, I need to do something, Ma. I can't keep going on like before." She looks at you for a long moment, her eyes searching your face as if looking for the child you once were. Then she reaches out and touches your cheek, her hand rough from years of washing and scrubbing, but still gentle. "You're a good boy," she says, her voice catching. "No matter what clothes you wear or who you run with, remember that." You nod, a lump forming in your throat. You want to promise her that you'll be all right, that you'll stay out of serious trouble, but you're not sure you can keep such a promise, not now that you've cast your lot with the Peaky blinders. Your mother drops her hand and turns away, moving to bank the fire for the night. The conversation is over, but its weight lingers in the air between you. That night, you lie awake on your thin mattress, listening to the sounds of your family sleeping around you, your sister's light snoring, your brother's occasional mumble, your grandmother's wheezy breath. Above you, on the building's second floor, a baby cries and is quickly hushed. Tomorrow night, you'll meet Mucklow and the others at the Rainbow. You'll begin your life as a Peaky blinder in earnest. Whatever that entails, violence, theft, intimidation, you've committed yourself to it now. As sleep finally begins to claim you, your thoughts drift to your new clothes carefully folded beside your mattress, the jacket, the boots, the cap tilted just so over one eye, the uniform of the Peaky blinders, your uniform now, you'll wear it proudly tomorrow, a visual declaration of your new allegiance. And whatever comes after, well, you'll face that when it comes. Your eyelids grow heavy and the sounds of the nighttime slum fade as you drift off to sleep. Your last conscious thought is a question. Have you made the right choice, or have you just signed away your future for a good jacket and a meat pie? There's no answer in the darkness, only the slow, steady breathing of your sleeping family and the distant, never-ending pulse of Birmingham at night. You wake to the sound of rain hammering against the window, a relentless drumming that promises a miserable day ahead. Your new boots and jacket sit in the corner where you left them, a stark contrast to the shabby furnishings of your family's cramped living space. The excitement and trepidation of last night has settled into a dull anxiety in your stomach as you contemplate what the evening will bring. The autumn rain transforms Birmingham into a dreary watercolour, the soot from countless chimneys mixing with the downpour to create black rivulets that snake down walls and windows. The gutters overflow with this dark mixture, turning the streets into treacherous channels of filthy water. Your father has already left for the foundry, slipping out before dawn as he does every morning except Sundays. Your mother stirs a pot of thin porridge over the meagre fire, stretching the oats as far as possible to feed 5 hungry mouths. The room smells of damp clothes hanging from lines strung across the ceiling, never fully drying in the perpetual humidity of an English autumn. "Not wearing your fancy new things today?" your mother asks, without looking up from the pot. There's an edge to her voice that wasn't there before yesterday. "Too wet," you reply, which is true enough. No sense ruining your new clothes before you even meet with Mucklow and his crew tonight. She nods, seemingly satisfied with your answer, and ladles porridge into a chipped bowl for you. The porridge is watery and bland, but it's hot and fills your belly better than yesterday's crust of bread. You eat slowly, savouring each spoonful, watching as your siblings wake and join you at the small table. Your brother eyes you with newfound curiosity. At 13, he's old enough to understand what your new clothes signify. Your sister, just 8, remains blissfully ignorant, chattering about a kitten she saw in the courtyard yesterday. After breakfast, you pull on your old boots, cracked leather with holes in the soles that let in water with every step, and head out into the rain. You've told your mother you're going to work, and in a sense, that's true. Today is your last day at the pawnbroker's. You'll collect what wages are owed to you and never return, Mr. Jenkins won't be surprised. Boys come and go from his employment regularly, either finding better work or, like you, being drawn into the street gangs that proliferate in Birmingham's slums. The rain soaks through your thin jacket within minutes. Water trickles down your neck and into your shirt, making you shiver despite the walk's exertion. The streets are quieter than usual, with only those who have no choice braving the downpour. A rag-and-bone man pushes his cart through the muck, calling out for scrap metal and old clothes, his voice barely audible over the rain. A woman hurries past with a basket covered by a piece of oilcloth, probably containing laundry she's delivering to one of the wealthier houses in the area. Birmingham is a city of stark contrasts. While you and your family struggle in the back-to-backs of Small Heath, just a mile away stand imposing Victorian mansions owned by factory bosses and merchants. The same industrial revolution that consigns you to poverty has made them rich beyond imagining. You reach Mr. Jenkins' pawn shop, a narrow storefront wedged between a bakery and a cobbler's. The windows display an eclectic assortment of items: watches, clothing, tools, even a violin, all surrendered by desperate people hoping to redeem them when fortunes improve. For most, that day never comes. The bell above the door jingles as you enter, shaking rainwater from your cap. Mr. Jenkins looks up from behind the counter, where he's examining a silver pocket watch through a loop. He's a thin man with spectacles that constantly slide down his nose, requiring him to push them back up with an ink-stained finger. "Ah, there you are," he says, setting aside the watch. "Thought you might not come in today, what with the weather." "I'm leaving," you blurt out, not seeing any reason to delay. "After today, I mean. I've found something else." Mr. Jenkins removes his spectacles, folding them carefully before responding. "The blinders?" he asks, though it's not really a question. Nothing happens in this neighbourhood without him knowing about it. You nod, unable to meet his gaze. He sighs, reaching beneath the counter to pull out a small leather pouch. "Your wages, then. 4 days at 2 pennies makes 8. He counts out the coins and slides them across the counter to you. "And 2 more for giving me proper notice, unlike the last boy." The unexpected generosity takes you by surprise. "Thank you, sir," you mumble, pocketing the money. Mr. Jenkins puts his spectacles back on, the gesture signalling the end of your brief employment. But as you turn to leave, he speaks again. "My brother joined a gang when we were lads," he says, his voice neutral, as if discussing the weather. "Thought it would make him rich, or at least less poor. Got himself killed before he turned 20, knife in the ribs outside a pub in Digbeth." You stand frozen, one hand on the doorknob, unsure how to respond to this unexpected confidence. "Just something to think about," Mr. Jenkins concludes, turning his attention back to the silver watch. "Close the door properly on your way out. Draft is terrible for the books." The rain has intensified by the time you step back onto the street, now coming down in sheets that reduce visibility to a few yards. You duck into the shelter of a nearby archway, considering your options. There's no point returning home. Your mother would know something was amiss if you came back so early. You could seek shelter in one of the public houses, but they'd want you to buy a drink, and you're saving your money for tonight. In the end, you decide to visit the Birmingham Museum and Art Gallery. It's a fair walk from Small Heath, but admission is free, and it will be warm and dry inside. More importantly, it will give you a glimpse of a world beyond your own, a reminder of what you're fighting to escape. The journey takes nearly an hour, the rain slowing your progress and the unfamiliar streets requiring frequent pauses to get your bearings. By the time you reach Chamberlain Square, where the museum stands imposing in its Victorian grandeur, you're thoroughly soaked and shivering. The attendant at the entrance gives you a suspicious look as you drip water onto the polished floor, but he doesn't turn you away. Inside, the museum is a revelation. High ceilings, gleaming display cases, paintings in gilt frames that must be worth more than your entire court of back-to-backs combined. You wander through the galleries, marvelling at artifacts from ancient civilizations, delicate porcelain from China, weapons from medieval times. In one room, a display of coins and medals catches your eye. Behind glass lie sovereigns, crowns, and guineas, more money than you've ever seen in one place. You think about the Peaky blinders, about Mucklow's promises of prosperity. Is this what he means? Not museum-worthy wealth, perhaps, but enough to escape the grinding poverty of Small Heath? The hours pass pleasantly as you explore the museum, temporarily forgetting the evening that awaits you. But as the afternoon wears on, a glance at the large clock in the main hall reminds you of your appointment. It's time to head back to Small Heath to prepare for your first night as a true Peaky blinder. The rain has finally stopped by the time you emerge from the museum, though the skies remain leaden and threatening. The streets glisten wetly in the fading light, puddles reflecting the gas lamps that lamplighters are beginning to ignite throughout the city. You make your way back to Small Heath, rehearsing what you'll tell your mother about your day at the pawn shop. Lies come easier now, slipping from your tongue with practiced smoothness. It should frighten you how quickly you're adapting to this new life of deception, but instead you feel a strange exhilaration. At home, you find only your siblings and grandmother. Your mother has gone to deliver some mending to a client, your brother explains, and won't be back until later. It's a stroke of luck. You can change into your new clothes without enduring her disapproving gaze. You eat a quick meal of bread and cheese, then climb the narrow stairs to change. The new boots pinch your feet, still not broken in, but the discomfort is a small price to pay for how they look. Solid, respectable, threatening when necessary. The jacket sits well on your shoulders, making them appear broader than they are, and the cap, when tilted at just the right angle over your right eye, transforms your youthful face into something harder and more dangerous. Standing before the small, cracked mirror nailed to the wall, you hardly recognize yourself. Gone is the boy who ran errands for Mr. Jenkins. In his place stands a Peaky blinder, ready to claim his share of Birmingham's streets. Night has fully descended by the time you leave the house, slipping out before your mother returns. The gas lamps cast pools of sickly yellow light at intervals, leaving much of the street in shadow. The air smells of wet coal and the faint, ever-present odour of the canals that crisscross the city, carrying goods and waste in equal measure. The Rainbow is busier than it was yesterday morning, filled with men drinking away the day's wages or sorrows. The air inside is thick with tobacco smoke and the yeasty smell of beer, the noise a wall of conversation punctuated by bursts of laughter or argument. You spot Mucklow and his crew at the same corner table. There are 5 of them tonight. Mucklow, Groom, the young man from yesterday whose name you still don't know, and 2 others. All wear the uniform of the Peaky blinders. All carry themselves with the same confident swagger. Heads turn as you make your way to their table, eyes taking in your new appearance. You feel a surge of pride mixed with anxiety. This is it. No turning back now. Right on time, Mucklow says as you reach them, a note of approval in his voice. Boys, this is our newest recruit. Scrubs up well, doesn't he? There are nods of agreement, a couple of grunts that might be welcoming. Groom slides a glass of dark beer toward you. Drink up, he says. Dutch courage. You take the glass, the implication of his words not lost on you. Whatever business Mucklow mentioned yesterday, it's likely to be dangerous, possibly violent. The beer is bitter and strong, nothing like the watered-down ale sometimes served with Sunday dinner at home. You take small sips, not wanting to appear inexperienced, but also needing to keep your wits about you. Mucklow leans in, his voice dropping. Time you learned how we operate, he says. The Peaky blinders control territory, streets, businesses, people. We collect protection money from shops, take a cut from illegal gambling, make sure goods move through the area without too much interference from the police. One of the men you haven't met before, a stocky individual with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow, speaks up. Problem is, not everyone respects our claim. Sloggers from Cheapside been moving in on our patch, trying to take over the betting at Horsefair. Horse Fair, you know, is an area just north of the city centre where illegal street gambling flourishes despite periodic police crackdowns. The stakes are small by wealthy standards, but significant to men like your father, who occasionally risk a few hard-earned pennies on the chance of a bigger payoff. Tonight, Mucklow continues, we're going to remind them whose territory it is. Your mouth goes dry despite the beer. How, you ask, the word coming out as little more than a whisper. Groom grins, the expression more predatory than amused. The old-fashioned way, he says. With these, he holds up his fists, knuckles scarred from previous encounters. The young man from yesterday, who you now learn is called Eddie, leans forward eagerly. Got my belt ready, he says, patting his waist where a heavy leather belt with a substantial buckle encircles his narrow frame. You think of your father's warnings about street fighting, about men left blind or crippled after gang confrontations, but it's too late for second thoughts. You're in now, committed to whatever comes next. The group finishes their drinks and stands as one, like a well-practiced unit. Mucklow claps a hand on your shoulder, steering you toward the door. Stay close, he instructs. Do what we do. If it comes to a fight, remember, first blow counts for everything. Make it hard, make it count. Outside, the night has turned cold, the earlier rain leaving a damp chill that seeps through your new clothes and into your bones. The streets are quieter now, most respectable folk having retired to their homes. Those still out have purpose, workers heading to night shifts. Women of questionable virtue soliciting business from doorways, the occasional constable making his rounds. Your group moves through small heath with practiced ease, keeping to shadows where possible, avoiding the main thoroughfares where police presence is stronger. Mucklow leads the way, seemingly able to navigate the labyrinthine streets without hesitation. As you walk, the scarred man, introduced as Harker, falls into step beside you. First night's always the worst, he says, voice low. After that, it gets easier. You're not sure if that's meant to be reassuring. What exactly are we doing, you ask? Harker shrugs. Teaching a lesson. The sloggers need reminding that Horsefair belongs to us on betting nights. We find their lookouts, rough them up a bit, send a message back to their bosses. What if they fight back? The question slips out before you can stop it. Harker's laugh is devoid of humour. That's the point, lad. Of course they'll fight back. That's when it gets interesting. Your heart pounds against your ribs as you continue through the dark streets, each step taking you closer to violence. This is what being a Peaky blinder means. Not just the clothes and the respect, but the willingness to hurt others to maintain your position. Horsefair is less a proper place than an intersection of several streets where men gather to bet on anything from horse races to dog fights to simple games of chance. As you approach, you can see small groups huddled under gas lamps, money changing hands, voices kept deliberately low. Mucklow stops the group in the shadow of a closed butcher's shop, surveying the scene. There, he says, nodding toward two young men standing at a corner. Sloggers. See how they're watching the betting, taking note of who's winning big so they can rob them later, most like. The sloggers are dressed similarly to your group, but with subtle differences. Caps worn straight rather than tilted, jackets less tailored, boots workmanlike rather than polished to a shine. They're young, probably no older than you, with the lean, hungry look of boys raised in Birmingham slums. What now? You whisper. Mucklow's grin is cold in the dim light. Now we introduce ourselves. He steps out of the shadows and strides toward the sloggers, the rest of you following like a tide of dark wool and malicious intent. The sloggers spot you immediately, their postures stiffening as they recognize trouble approaching. Evening, lads, Mucklow calls, his voice carrying just enough to be heard without drawing attention from the gamblers nearby. Bit far from Cheapside, aren't you? One of the sloggers, slightly taller than his companion, steps forward. Free country, isn't it? Man can stand where he likes. Not in horsefair, Groom interjects, moving to stand beside Mucklow. Not on betting nights. This is blinder territory. The second slogger spits on the ground. Says who? Your boss Billy Kimber. He don't own Birmingham. The name means nothing to you, but you see Mucklow's expression harden at its mention. Billy Kimber, you'll later learn, is a rising figure in Birmingham's criminal hierarchy, a man whose ambition and ruthlessness are already becoming legendary in the city's underworld. Says us, Mucklow replies, voice dangerously soft. And we're right here, while Kimber's nowhere to be seen. It happens faster than you can follow. Mucklow lunges forward, his fist connecting with the taller slogger's jaw with a sickening crack. The man staggers but doesn't fall, coming back with a wild swing that Mucklow easily dodges. Then everyone is moving at once. Groom and Harker take on the second slogger, while Eddie and the fifth blinder, a silent man you know only as Roberts, circle behind to cut off escape. You stand frozen, watching as the violence unfolds with brutal efficiency. Mucklow fights with practiced precision, each blow calculated for maximum impact. The slogger, despite his size, is clearly outmatched. A punch to the solar plexus doubles him over, followed by a knee to the face that sends blood spraying onto the cobblestones. The second slogger fares no better against Groom and Harker. A flurry of blows leaves him dazed and stumbling. When he tries to flee, Roberts steps in his path, sending him sprawling with a well-placed foot. Your turn, Mucklow says suddenly, looking directly at you. The taller slogger is on his knees now, blood streaming from his nose, eyes unfocused. Finish him off. Your stomach lurches. This isn't what you expected. Watching a fight is one thing, participating is another entirely. But 5 pairs of eyes are on you, waiting, judging. You step forward, fists clenched so tightly your nails dig into your palms. The slogger looks up at you, no recognition in his gaze, just pain and the dull awareness of more to come. Do it, Groom urges from behind you. Prove you're one of us. Your first punch lands awkwardly, glancing off the slogger's cheekbone. Pain shoots through your knuckles, but you barely register it. The second hits more solidly, connecting with his temple and sending him sprawling onto the wet cobblestones. He doesn't get up. For a terrifying moment, you think you've killed him, but then you see the shallow rise and fall of his chest. Just unconscious then. Not bad for a first go, Mucklow says, clapping you on the shoulder. Next time, put your weight behind it more. Like this. He demonstrates the proper form, fist driving straight from the shoulder. You nod, feeling sick but also strangely exhilarated. Your hand throbs where it connected with the slogger's face, but the pain is almost welcome, proof that you've crossed a line, become someone new. The second slogger is similarly incapacitated, lying in a heap against a wall where Groom and Harker have left him. Eddie goes through his pockets, extracting a few coins and a cheap pocket knife. Spoils of war, he explains, pocketing the items without a second thought. Mucklow surveys the scene with satisfaction. That should send the right message, he says. Let's move on before the coppers show up. You follow the group away from Horsefair, deeper into the network of streets that make up Small Heath. The adrenaline of the fight begins to fade, replaced by a hollow feeling in your chest. You've crossed a line tonight, done something that can't be undone. Your first rule of being a blinder, Mucklow says as you walk, seemingly reading your thoughts, is loyalty. We look after our own. What we did back there, that was protecting our interests. Those sloggers would have done the same to us, given half a chance. You nod, not trusting yourself to speak. Is he trying to justify the violence, or simply explain the rules of this new world you've entered? The group stops at another pub. The Garrison this time, a larger establishment that serves as a gathering place for many of Small Heath's residents. Inside, the atmosphere is less tense than at the Rainbow, more celebratory. A fiddle player in the corner provides music that several couples dance to, while bar staff hurry to keep up with orders. Mucklow finds a table near the back, ordering a round of drinks with a confidence that suggests he's well known here. No one questions your age or right to be present. You're with the Peaky Blinders now, and that's enough. Drink up, Groom says, pushing a glass toward you. You've earned it. The liquor burns a fiery path down your throat, bringing tears to your eyes that you quickly blink away. The others laugh, not unkindly, at your reaction. Gets easier, Harker assures you, like everything else. As the night progresses, you learn more about your new companions. Eddie, the youngest, has been with the Blinders for just 6 months, having joined after his father died in a factory accident. Roberts, the quiet one, rarely speaks but is apparently lethal in a fight, especially with a knife. Harker used to work the canals before joining up and still has contacts among the boat people who move goods in and out of Birmingham. Mucklow, you discover, grew up on the same streets as you, his father also a foundry worker, but unlike your father, Mucklow's died young, leaving the family destitute. The gang became his family, his way of ensuring he and his siblings didn't starve. It's a common story in Birmingham, where poverty claims lives as surely as any disease. The Industrial Revolution that made the city famous also created its slums, its desperate underclass willing to do anything to survive. By the time you leave the Garrison, the night is well advanced, the streets empty except for the occasional late worker or early riser. You're light-headed from the drinks, your knuckles throbbing where they connected with the slogger's face, but there's also a sense of belonging that you've never experienced before. These men, violent and crude as they may be, have accepted you as one of their own. Same time tomorrow, Mucklow tells you as the group begins to disperse. We've got collections to make. Bring something to carry coins in. He presses several shillings into your hand. Your cut from tonight. Not much, but it'll get better. It's more money than you made in a week at the pawn shop, earned in a single night. The implications are both thrilling and terrifying. You make your way home through the darkened streets, the city quieter now, but never truly silent. Somewhere a baby cries, its wails echoing between buildings. A cat screeches in alarm or anger, the sound unnervingly human. From an upper window comes the sound of a man and woman arguing. Their words indistinct, but their fury clear. This is Birmingham at night. A beast that never fully sleeps, merely dozes fitfully, always ready to wake at the slightest provocation. Your home is dark when you arrive, your family asleep. You ease the door open carefully, wincing at the creak of hinges that need oiling. Inside, the embers of the fire cast just enough light to navigate by, revealing the sleeping forms of your siblings on their pallet. Your grandmother in her bed, your parents on their mattress against the far wall. You remove your boots with exaggerated care, setting them beside your coat and cap. Your knuckles have begun to swell where they connected with the slogger's face. The skin split in places. You'll need to wash them before anyone notices. Come up with a plausible explanation for the injuries. More lies. More deception. Is this what your life will be now? A constant web of falsehoods spun to protect your family from the truth of what you've become? As you settle onto your own thin mattress, sleep seems impossibly distant despite your physical exhaustion. Your mind replays the events of the night, the fight, the drinks afterward, the casual acceptance of violence as simply part of life. You think of Mr. Jenkins' warning about his brother, dead before 20 with a knife in his ribs. Is that your fate now, or will you be one of the lucky ones, rising through the ranks to become someone like Billy Kimber, whose name alone carries weight in Birmingham's underworld? The future stretches before you, a dark road with no clear destination, but you've taken your first steps down it now, and there's no turning back. For better or worse, you're a Peaky blinder. Sleep finally claims you as the first grey light of dawn begins to filter through the window. Your last conscious thought is a question. Was it worth it? The money in your pocket, the respect in Mucklow's eyes, are they worth the blood on your knuckles and the lies on your tongue? There's no answer in the silence of your sleeping home, only the slow, steady breathing of your family and the distant, never-ending pulse of Birmingham awakening to another day of struggle and survival. Winter has settled over Birmingham like a shroud, transforming the industrial landscape into something almost beautiful when fresh snow briefly covers the grime. But beauty is fleeting in Small Heath. By midday, the pristine white turns to grey slush underfoot, churned by thousands of boots and hooves, stained by coal dust and factory smoke. 3 months have passed since that first night with Mucklow and his crew. 3 months of collections, confrontations, and occasional violence. Your knuckles have healed, only to be split open and heal again. Your mother has stopped asking questions about your late nights and the money you bring home, though the worry never leaves her eyes. Your father, too, maintains his silence, but you sometimes catch him watching you with an expression that might be disappointment or perhaps grudging respect. The back-to-back house feels different now. The walls seem to press in more tightly, the ceiling lower, the shared court outside smaller and more confining. You've glimpsed another world in these months, the flash of gold pocket watches, the gleam of polished mahogany in private clubs, the rustle of crisp pound notes changing hands. Once seen, such things cannot be unseen, and they make the poverty of your origins more stark by comparison. This morning, frost patterns trace delicate ferns across the inside of your window, your breath puffs visible in the frigid air as you dress quickly, adding layers against the bitter cold. Wool socks darned so many times they're more repair than original material. Long underwear that itches, but keeps the worst of the chill at bay. Your regular clothes, and then the uniform of the Peaky blinders over top. The tailored jacket, the heavy boots, the flat cap that marks you as one of them. Downstairs, your mother has managed to coax the fire to life, though coal is expensive and used sparingly. The room is only marginally warmer than upstairs. Your siblings huddle near the meagre flames, hands outstretched toward the heat. Toast, your mother offers, holding out a piece of bread speared on a long fork, lightly browned over the fire. You take it with murmured thanks. The bread is several days old and hard as a brick, but the warmth makes it almost palatable. Your stomach growls, demanding more, but you know there isn't any. Winter is the hungry time, when food prices rise and work becomes scarcer for many. Not for you, though. The Peaky blinders operate year-round, their business model unaffected by the seasons. If anything, the desperation of winter drives more people to gambling, to buying stolen goods, to paying for protection they can't afford but fear to refuse. Meeting the lads again? Your brother asks as you pull on your heavy coat. There's envy in his voice. At 13, he's eager to follow in your footsteps, drawn by the allure of quick money and the respect or fear the blinders command on the streets. Just business, you reply vaguely. Don't wait up. Outside, the cold hits like a physical blow. The temperature has dropped overnight, turning puddles to treacherous sheets of ice that lurk beneath the thin layer of snow. Your breath clouds before you as you make your way carefully down the street, past women breaking ice in water buckets, and men huddled at corners, stamping their feet to keep warm as they wait for work that probably won't come. Birmingham in winter reveals the true face of poverty. Children with chilblains on their fingers beg for pennies or scraps of food. Old men and women who've survived a lifetime of industrial labour but cannot survive another winter die quietly in their beds, their passing marked only by the appearance of the parish coffin cart. The workhouse fills to bursting despite the harsh conditions inside. At least there's regular food and some warmth, which is more than many can manage outside its walls. Your destination this morning is a coffee house near the markets, a meeting place favoured by Mucklow for its relative privacy and central location. Inside, the warmth and rich aroma of coffee and tobacco wrap around you like a blanket. The establishment caters to a mixed clientele, clerks and shop owners in the mornings, labourers during the day, and a rougher element as evening approaches. Mucklow sits at his usual table in the corner, a cup of steaming coffee before him and a newspaper spread open. He looks up as you approach, folding the paper with deliberate care. "Right on time," he says by way of greeting, gesturing for you to sit. "Coffee?" You nod, and he signals to the proprietor, who brings over another cup of the dark brew. It's a small luxury you've grown accustomed to in recent months, one of many changes in your daily life since joining the Blinders. "Got a special job today," Mucklow says once the proprietor has moved away. "Not the usual collections." You take a sip of coffee, the bitter liquid warming you from the inside. "What kind of job?" "Message delivery." He taps the folded newspaper. "See this? Police are cracking down again. New chief constable making a name for himself, wants to clean up the city." You've heard rumours about the new man, Charles Houghton Rafter, brought in to modernise the Birmingham police force. Word on the street is that he's recruiting bigger, stronger officers and training them to fight as well as police. What's that got to do with us, you ask, though you have a sinking feeling you already know. Mucklow's smile doesn't reach his eyes. Seems one of our friends at the station has been getting too enthusiastic about his job. Sergeant Willis been causing problems for some of our operations, turned down the usual arrangement to look the other way. Most of the local constables have an understanding with the Blinders. A few shillings in the right pocket means they patrol elsewhere when certain activities are taking place. It's an arrangement that benefits everyone, keeps the peace in its own way, but occasionally a new officer arrives with ideals intact, unwilling to play by the established rules. "So we're going to explain the way things work, you venture?" "Exactly. Not too rough. He's still the law, after all. Just enough to make the point. A year ago, the idea of intimidating a police officer would have horrified you. Now, it's just another job, a necessary part of maintaining the delicate balance of power in Birmingham's underworld." Mucklow outlines the plan as you finish your coffee. Sergeant Willis walks the same beat every day, passing through the jewellery quarter at precisely 10:30. You and Eddie will intercept him in an alley where there are no witnesses, deliver the message with enough force to make it memorable, but not enough to cause serious injury, and disappear before reinforcements can arrive. "Simple enough?" Mucklow asks when he's finished explaining. You nod, ignoring the flutter of anxiety in your stomach. This is different from the usual Blinder business. Assaulting a police officer carries heavier penalties than most of your activities if you're caught, but refusing isn't an option, not if you want to maintain your position in the gang. Outside the coffee house, the day has brightened somewhat, though the sun remains a pale disk behind thin clouds. You part ways with Mucklow temporarily, heading to the garrison to collect Eddie before proceeding to the jewellery quarter. The walk takes you through areas of Birmingham rarely visited in your former life. The contrasts between neighbourhoods are stark, from the crowded squalor of Small Heath to the relative prosperity of the commercial districts, where shops display goods you could never afford, and well-dressed people hurry past without sparing a glance for the rough-looking young man in their midst. You find Eddie at the garrison, nursing a pint despite the early hour. His eyes brighten when you enter, boredom giving way to anticipation as you explain the day's task. "Willis, eh?" he says, draining his glass. "About time someone taught him manners. Arrested my cousin last week. Roughed him up something proper at the station." Together, you make your way to the jewellery quarter, an area of narrow streets and workshops where Birmingham's famous metalworking traditions are carried on by skilled craftsmen. Gold, silver and precious stones flow through these streets, making them both well policed and, paradoxically, rife with opportunity for those willing to risk the consequences of getting caught. The alley Mucklow designated is a narrow passage between two workshops, dim even at midday and lined with stacked crates that provide convenient places to conceal yourselves. You arrive with 15 minutes to spare, using the time to scout the area and confirm that Willis is maintaining his usual route. Sure enough, at precisely 10:30, the sergeant appears at the far end of the street, his uniform impeccable, his stride purposeful. He's a large man, towering over most of the pedestrians he passes, with a thick moustache and the ruddy complexion of someone who enjoys his ale a bit too much. You and Eddie exchange a glance, then step out from your hiding places as Willis passes the mouth of the alley. "Sergeant," you call, your voice steady despite the rapid beating of your heart. "Got a moment?" Willis turns, his hand instinctively moving to the truncheon at his belt as he identifies you as Blinders. "What do you want?" he demands, voice gruff but not yet alarmed. Two youths, even Peaky Blinders, aren't usually foolish enough to challenge a police officer directly. "Just a friendly word," Eddie says, moving to block the alley's entrance, cutting off retreat. Willis's eyes narrow, his posture shifting as he recognizes the threat. "You boys want to think very carefully about what you're doing," he warns. "Interfering with a police officer is a serious offence. So is excessive enthusiasm in your duties," you reply, echoing Mucklow's earlier words. "Our associates have noticed you've been particularly diligent lately. It's causing inconvenience." Understanding dawns on Willis's face, followed quickly by anger. "If you think you can intimidate me, you're sorely mistaken," he growls, drawing his truncheon. "I don't take bribes, and I don't look the other way while criminals operate in my jurisdiction." "Admirable principles," you say, moving closer. "But impractical in Birmingham. Everyone understands how things work here. A little consideration from us, a little flexibility from you. It makes life easier for everyone." Willis's response is to swing his truncheon at your head, a blow you barely dodge. "I'm placing you both under arrest," he announces, reaching for the whistle hanging from his uniform. Eddie moves faster than you thought possible, tackling the sergeant before he can blow the whistle. The two crash into a stack of crates, sending them toppling with a tremendous clatter. Willis is strong, but Eddie is younger and fueled by personal grudge. They grapple on the ground, each struggling for advantage. "You should help Eddie," That's what a loyal blinder would do. But assaulting a police officer means serious jail time if you're caught. Yet failing to support your fellow gang member carries its own risks. The moment of indecision costs you. Willis manages to throw Eddie off and regain his feet, breathing heavily but still very much in the fight. His eyes lock with yours, contempt clear in his gaze. "Thought you blinders were supposed to be tough," he taunts, raising his truncheon again. "Two of you can't handle one policeman?" Pride and fear war within you, but in the end, pride wins. You lunge forward, feinting left before driving your right fist into Willis's kidney. He grunts in pain but doesn't go down, swinging his truncheon in a wide arc that catches you across the shoulder. Pain explodes through your upper body, momentarily numbing your arm. Eddie rejoins the fight, landing a solid kick to the back of Willis's knee that makes the joint buckle. The sergeant stumbles but keeps his balance, his training evident in the way he positions himself to face both attackers. What follows is a brutal, ungraceful struggle in the confined space of the alley. Willis fights with the desperation of a man who knows defeat means more than just pain. It means the collapse of his principles, the acknowledgement that law in Birmingham is flexible and corruptible. You and Eddie fight with the knowledge that failure will be reported to Mucklow, with consequences neither of you wishes to contemplate. In the end, numbers tell. A lucky blow from Eddie's belt buckle catches Willis on the temple, opening a gash that immediately streams blood into his eye. Half blinded and dizzy, his defense falters long enough for you to land a punishing blow to his solar plexus. The sergeant doubles over, gasping for breath, and a final strike from Eddie sends him sprawling onto the cobblestones. Willis lies there, blood pooling beneath his head, chest heaving as he struggles to regain his breath. He's conscious but incapacitated, at least temporarily. You stand over him, your own breathing ragged, a dull throb settling into your shoulder where the truncheon connected. "The message is simple," you say between breaths. "Look the other way when our business is conducted. Accept the weekly consideration that will be offered, or next time the conversation won't be nearly so pleasant." Eddie adds his own embellishment, delivering a final kick to Willis's ribs that produces a concerning crack. "That's for my cousin," he spits. You grab Eddie's arm, pulling him back. "Enough. Message delivered." As you turn to leave, Willis's voice stops you, weak but defiant. "This isn't over," he manages. "Rafter's different. He won't stand for this. None of us will anymore." You look back at the fallen officer, noting the conviction in his eyes despite his defeated position. A chill that has nothing to do with the winter cold runs through you. Perhaps things are changing in Birmingham. Perhaps the old arrangements won't hold under this new chief constable. But that's a problem for another day. Right now you need to report back to Mucklow and get as far from the jewellery quarter as possible before Willis recovers enough to summon help. You and Eddie separate once you're clear of the immediate area, taking different routes back to Small Heath to avoid drawing attention. Your shoulder throbs with each step, and you suspect it will be spectacularly bruised by evening. Still, you got off lightly compared to Sergeant Willis. The incident leaves a sour taste in your mouth that persists as you make your way through Birmingham's bustling streets. This was different from fighting rival gang members or intimidating shopkeepers for protection money. Willis was doing his job, upholding the law as he swore to do. There's no moral ambiguity in his position, which makes your own actions all the more questionable. These thoughts plague you as you walk, barely noticing your surroundings until a familiar voice cuts through your preoccupation. "Didn't expect to see you here." You look up, startled to find yourself near Mr. Jenkins's pawn shop. The man himself stands in the doorway, regarding you with a mixture of curiosity and something that might be concern. just passing through, you mutter, suddenly conscious of your dishevelled appearance and the way you're favouring your injured shoulder. Mr. Jenkins studies you for a moment, then steps aside. "Come in for a minute," he says. "Look like you could use a sit-down." Pride urges you to refuse, to maintain the hard facade you've cultivated these past months. But exhaustion and the lingering unease from the encounter with Willis overcome your reluctance. You follow your former employer into the familiar confines of the pawn shop. Nothing has changed since you left. The same eclectic collection of items lines the shelves and fills the display cases, each representing a moment of desperation for its former owner. Mr. Jenkins gestures to a chair behind the counter, then busies himself with an old teapot that sits on a small spirit burner. "Ran into some trouble?" he asks, not looking at you as he measures tea leaves into a pot. You consider lying, but find you lack the energy. Something like that. "Blinder business, I assume." He pours boiling water over the leaves, the earthy aroma of cheap tea filling the small shop. "Getting deeper into it, are you?" The question carries no judgment, which somehow makes it harder to deflect. "Just doing what needs doing," you reply, echoing phrases you've heard from Mucklow and the others. Mr. Jenkins hands you a chipped cup of tea, stronger than you usually take it, but welcome nonetheless. "And what needs doing today involved getting that shoulder injured, I see." You sip the tea, wincing as the movement jostles your injury. "Had a disagreement with someone? A policeman, perhaps?" When you look up sharply, he continues, "Word travels fast in Small Heath. Sergeant Willis was found in an alley in the jewellery quarter, beaten but alive. 2 blinders seen fleeing the scene." Fear shoots through you. "They identified us." Mr. Jenkins shakes his head. "Not specifically, just the caps and the attitude. But people will talk, and sooner or later, names will surface." The warmth of the tea does nothing to dispel the cold dread settling in your stomach. Assaulting a police officer is serious, much more serious than the petty crimes and neighbourhood enforcement that have made up most of your blinder activities until now. What happens now? The question comes out before you can stop it, revealing a vulnerability you've tried to bury these past months. Mr. Jenkins regards you thoughtfully, his lined face inscrutable. That depends on a lot of things, on Willis and how badly he's hurt, on this new chief constable and how determined he is to make an example, on Mucklow and what he decides is the best course of action. He pauses, then adds quietly, and on you and what you choose to do next. "I don't have a choice," you protest, though the words ring hollow even to your own ears. "There's always a choice," Mr. Jenkins counters. "Might not be an easy one, might come with consequences you'd rather not face, but it's still a choice." You finish your tea in silence, considering his words. What choice do you have, really? You're in too deep with the blinders to simply walk away. And even if you could, what then? Back to running errands for pennies a day? Back to watching your family slowly starve through the winter months? No, you've come too far to turn back now. The path you've chosen, or that was chosen for you by circumstance and desperation, leads forward, not back. You stand, placing the empty cup on the counter. "Thanks for the tea," you say, heading for the door. "Be careful," Mr. Jenkins calls after you. "This new Chief Constable Rafter, he's not like the others. He means to clean up Birmingham, starting with the gangs." You pause at the threshold, looking back at the pawnbroker. "Why are you telling me this? Why do you care what happens to me?" Mr. Jenkins' expression softens momentarily, "Because I remember the boy who worked for me, honest, hard-working, not yet hardened by the streets. That boy is still in there somewhere, I think. Would be a shame to see him lost completely." The words follow you out into the winter day, echoing in your mind as you make your way to the garrison to report to Mucklow. The pub is busier now, the lunchtime crowd filling the tables and standing 3 deep at the bar. The warmth inside is almost stifling after the cold outside, and the air is thick with tobacco smoke and the smell of beer and unwashed bodies. Mucklow sits at his usual table in the corner, Groom beside him. Their expressions shift from relaxed to alert as they spot you weaving through the crowd toward them. "Well?" Mucklow demands as soon as you're within earshot. "Message delivered," you reply, sliding onto a bench opposite them. "Willis won't forget it anytime soon." Groom pushes a glass of whiskey towards you. "Details, lad. We want details." You recount the confrontation, downplaying your moment of hesitation and emphasizing the effectiveness of the beating administered. Mucklow listens without interruption, his face revealing nothing of his thoughts. "And Willis's last words?" he asks when you've finished. "About Rafter being different?" You nod, surprised he's focused on this detail rather than the success of the mission. "Said Rafter won't stand for it, that none of them will anymore." Mucklow and Groom exchange a glance laden with meaning you can't quite interpret. "Could be trouble brewing," Groom mutters. "Could be," Mucklow agrees. "Or could be just talk from a man with wounded pride." He turns his attention back to you. "You did well today." Willis needed to be reminded of how things work in Birmingham. His approval should please you, should validate the risks taken and the injuries sustained. Instead, you find yourself thinking of Mr. Jenkins's words about choices and consequences, about the boy you once were and the man you're becoming. Mucklow misinterprets your silence as expectation. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out several coins, sliding them across the table to you. Your share, plus a bit extra for handling Willis. The money gleams dully in the pub's dim light. Blood money, some might call it. But in the harsh reality of Birmingham's slums, such distinctions blur when weighed against empty stomachs and unheated rooms. You pocket the coins, the weight of them a tangible reminder of your new life. 3 months ago, you joined the Peaky Blinders seeking protection and prosperity. You found both, after a fashion, but at what cost to yourself, to the person you might have become in a different world, under different circumstances. These philosophical musings are interrupted by Mucklow leaning forward, his voice dropping to ensure only you and Groom can hear. "Things are changing in Birmingham," he says, echoing both Willis and Mr. Jenkins. "Rafter's bringing in new blood, men who aren't part of the old arrangements. And there's talk of Billy Kimber expanding his operations, looking to control more of the betting at the racecourses." "What's that mean for us?" you ask, the whiskey burning pleasantly in your stomach, dulling the ache in your shoulder. "Means we need to be smarter, more careful. Means the old ways of doing business might not work much longer." Mucklow's eyes harden. "But also means opportunities for those willing to adapt, to prove their worth in changing times." You recognize the implicit challenge in his words. Prove your worth, rise with the tide of change, or be left behind, or worse. "I'm with you," you say, meeting his gaze steadily. "Whatever comes next." Groom nods approvingly, but Mucklow's expression remains serious. "Good, because I think we're heading for a proper storm in this city. Rafter and his new police on one side, Kimber and his ambitions on the other, and us blinders caught in the middle." Outside, snow begins to fall again, fresh flakes swirling past the grimy windows of the garrison. Winter tightens its grip on Birmingham, and with it comes a sense of foreboding that has nothing to do with the weather. You finish your whiskey, the alcohol spreading warmth through your tired body. Whatever storm is coming, you're committed now. For better or worse, your fate is tied to the Peaky Blinders, to Mucklow and his crew, to the violent brotherhood you've joined out of necessity and stayed with by choice. As you leave the garrison hours later, the snow has accumulated on the streets, transforming the industrial cityscape once again. Your boots crunch through the fresh powder, leaving a trail that will soon be covered by more falling snow, erasing any evidence of your passage. Like so much in Birmingham, permanence is an illusion. The city changes constantly, adapting to new industries, new people, new challenges. Perhaps Mucklow is right. Those who can't adapt are destined to be left behind. The question that follows you home through the snowy streets is simpler but no less daunting. What kind of man will you become in this changing landscape? The honourable worker your mother hoped for, the pragmatic survivor your father exemplifies, or something else entirely shaped by the violent realities of life as a Peaky blinder in a city teetering on the edge of transformation? The answer, like the path ahead, remains hidden beneath the falling snow, waiting to be revealed one step at a time. Spring arrives in Birmingham not with a flourish, but with a slow, grudging retreat of winter. The snow melts, revealing months of accumulated filth on the streets. The canals, frozen solid through January and February, begin to flow again, carrying barges laden with coal, iron and manufactured goods through the heart of the city. Factory chimneys that smouldered through the cold months now belch black smoke with renewed vigour, coating everything in a fresh layer of soot that the intermittent spring rain transforms into grimy rivulets down buildings and statues. Your world has changed with the seasons. What began as a desperate choice in autumn has, by spring, become a way of life. The bruise from Sergeant Willis's truncheon has long since faded, but its memory lingers, along with a wariness of the police that has only grown as Chief Constable Rafter's reforms take shape. The Birmingham police force is changing. More men, bigger men, better trained and less willing to accept the arrangements that kept an uneasy peace between law enforcement and the gangs that control much of the city's underground economy. Constables now patrol in pairs rather than alone, making intimidation more difficult. Some of the old officers who understood the system have been replaced by newcomers, their faces stern and unmarked by compromise. Your status within the Peaky blinders has risen too. The Willis incident, far from causing trouble, elevated your standing with Mucklow and the others. You're trusted now with larger collections, with planning rather than just execution, with knowledge of the gang's wider operations beyond Small Heath. This trust brings both benefits and burdens. Your pockets are rarely empty these days, allowing you to contribute more to your family's welfare. Your mother no longer questions where the money comes from, accepting the fiction that you found steady work with a local businessman. Your father, too, seems to have made peace with your choices, especially since your contributions meant coal for the fire through the worst of winter and medicine when your sister fell ill with fever in March. But the burden of knowledge weighs heavily. You know now about the protection rackets that extend beyond Small Heath to shops and businesses throughout Birmingham. You know about the smuggling operations that move untaxed whiskey and tobacco through the city via the canal network. You know about the betting at the racecourses where the Peaky blinders enforce their claim through violence when necessary, bringing them into conflict with other gangs seeking the same profitable territory. And you know about Billy Kimber, the rising power in Birmingham's criminal world whose shadow looms larger with each passing week. Kimber is different from the street gangs like the Blinders or the Sloggers. He thinks bigger, operates with more sophistication, has connections that extend to London and beyond. Rumours suggest he's looking to consolidate control over all of Birmingham's criminal enterprises, either by alliance or elimination. This morning, the first truly warm day of spring finds you at the Bullring Market in the heart of Birmingham. The open-air market has existed since medieval times, though its current incarnation dates only to the previous century. Stalls selling everything from fresh vegetables to live chickens to second-hand clothes spread across the cobblestones, creating a maze of commerce that draws people from all walks of Birmingham life. You weave through the crowds, nodding to acquaintances and keeping a watchful eye for police or rival gang members. Your task today is simple but significant. Mucklow has sent you to meet with market stall holders who pay weekly protection to the blinders, assessing their takings and adjusting the rates accordingly. It's a job that requires judgment and discretion, a sign of Mucklow's growing trust in your abilities. The smells of the market envelop you. Fresh bread from the bakery stalls, the earthy aroma of vegetables newly pulled from the ground, the less pleasant odours of fish and livestock. People jostle around you, a cross-section of Birmingham society. Factory workers' wives haggle over the price of cabbage and potatoes. Middle-class housewives, accompanied by maids carrying baskets, inspect cuts of meat with critical eyes. Street children dart between stalls, some begging, others with hands ready to slip into unguarded pockets. You stop at a vegetable stall run by an old man named Harris, who's been selling produce at the Bullring for over 40 years. His hands are gnarled from decades of hard work, his face deeply lined, but his eyes remain sharp as he watches you approach. "Morning," he greets you without warmth. Harris has never accepted the necessity of protection payments with good grace, though he's wise enough not to refuse outright. "Mr. Harris," you reply with a nod. "Fine day for business." He grunts, hands continuing to arrange carrots in neat rows. "What's the damage this week, then?" You cast an appraising eye over his stall. The spring vegetables look fresh and plentiful. New potatoes, young carrots, early peas in their pods. After the scarcity of winter, people are hungry for fresh produce, and Harris's prices reflect this seasonal demand. "Trade's picking up," you observe. "I'd say 7 shillings covers it." Harris's face darkens. "It was 5 last week." "Spring brings better business," you reply, the script familiar after months of similar conversations. "Our costs go up too." "What costs?" Harris demands, though he keeps his voice low. "Standing around looking menacing, not breaking my stall or my fingers? That what I'm paying for?" The bluntness catches you off guard. Usually, the fiction of protection from theft, from rival gangs, from mysterious accidents is maintained by both parties. Harris has never been so direct in naming the transaction for what it is: extortion. "Times are changing, Mr. Harris," you say, leaning closer to ensure no passers-by overhear. "Police getting more active, risks increasing, 7 shillings or we can't guarantee your stall's safety." Harris holds your gaze for a long moment, something like disgust flickering across his weathered features. Then he reaches beneath his stall and withdraws a small cloth pouch, counting out 7 shillings with deliberate slowness. "There," he says, holding out the coins. "Your blood money." You pocket the money, a familiar discomfort settling in your stomach. "See you next week," you say, turning to leave. "If I'm still here," Harris replies. "Rafter's been around, you know, talking to stall holders, saying things might change soon. This is news to you and potentially significant." "What things?" Harris shrugs, already turning his attention to a customer examining his potatoes. "Just that we shouldn't have to pay twice. Taxes to the city and protection to the likes of you. That honest businessman might soon be able to work without fear." You move on, unsettled by this information. If Rafter is personally visiting market traders, encouraging them to resist the protection rackets, it signals a more direct challenge to the Blinders' operations than the increased police presence alone. The next few collections proceed without incident, though you notice a new wariness in the stallholders' attitudes, a tension that wasn't present before. Something has changed in the atmosphere of the bullring, a shift in the balance of power that has defined Birmingham's underworld for decades. As you finish your rounds, a commotion near the market's edge draws your attention. A crowd has gathered, voices raised in excitement or alarm. Curiosity pulls you toward the disturbance, though caution keeps you at the periphery of the onlookers. Through gaps in the crowd, you glimpse the cause of the excitement. Police officers, at least 6 of them, surrounding a man pinned against a wall. The man wears the distinctive cap and clothing of a Peaky blinder, though from this distance you can't identify him. "What's happening?" you ask a woman standing nearby, keeping your tone casual despite the sudden pounding of your heart. "Police caught one of them Peaky blinders collecting protection money," she replies with evident satisfaction. "About time too, bleeding us dry they have been for years." The crowd parts momentarily, giving you a clear view of the captured blinder. With a jolt of recognition, you identify Eddie, his face bloodied from what appears to have been substantial resistance to arrest. 2 officers hold his arms while a third, larger man stands before him. Even from a distance, the latter's authoritative bearing marks him as someone of rank. "That's him. That's Rafter himself," someone in the crowd murmurs, confirming your suspicion. "The chief constable has come personally to oversee this arrest, a public demonstration of his commitment to breaking the gang's hold on Birmingham's commerce. You should leave now, before someone connects you to Eddie or recognizes you as a blinder yourself." But a morbid fascination holds you in place as Rafter speaks to the crowd, his voice carrying clearly over the market's usual cacophony. "This man has been arrested for extortion and assault," he announces. "For too long, these gangs have terrorized honest citizens of Birmingham, taking what they haven't earned, threatening those who refuse to pay. That ends now." A murmur of approval ripples through the spectators. Rafter continues, his words calculated for maximum effect. "I make this promise to all of you. The Birmingham City Police will no longer tolerate these criminals operating openly on our streets. We will arrest them, we will prosecute them, we will imprison them." His gaze sweeps the crowd, and for a heart-stopping moment you think his eyes lock with yours, but then he turns away, giving a curt nod to his officers. They begin to lead Eddie away, presumably to the police station at Steelhouse Lane. The crowd begins to disperse, many faces showing a new hope or determination that sends a chill through you. This wasn't just an arrest, it was a declaration of war against the Peaky blinders and all they represent. You need to report to Mucklow immediately. Eddie's arrest, especially if he's found with protection money on him, could compromise operations throughout the bullring, and Rafter's public challenge cannot go unanswered if the blinders are to maintain their control of the area. Moving quickly but without drawing attention, you leave the market and head toward the garrison, the most likely place to find Mucklow at this hour. The spring sunshine that earlier seemed pleasant now feels exposing, as if Rafter's new aggressive policing has suddenly made the very act of being a Peaky blinder dangerous in ways it wasn't before. The garrison is relatively quiet when you arrive, the lunchtime rush not yet begun. Mucklow sits at his usual table with groom and Harker, deep in conversation that stops abruptly when they notice your entrance. "You're back early," Mucklow observes, a question in his tone. You slide onto the bench opposite him, lowering your voice despite the pub's relative emptiness. "Eddie's been arrested. At the bullring. Rafter was there personally." The effect of your news is immediate. Groom curses under his breath while Harker's face darkens with concern. Mucklow remains outwardly calm, though you detect a tightening around his eyes. "Tell me everything," he orders, "every detail." You recount the scene at the market, including Rafter's speech and the crowd's reaction. You also relay Harris's comment about the chief constable speaking to stallholders, encouraging resistance to the protection rackets. When you finish, Mucklow is silent for a long moment, fingers drumming a thoughtful rhythm on the table's scarred surface. Finally, he speaks. "This is a problem, not just Eddie. He knows the rules, won't talk even if they work him over a bit. But Rafter making it public like that, turning the people against us, could be bad for business," Groom agrees. "If everyone decides to stop paying at once, we haven't got the men to enforce collection from all of them. And the new coppers aren't taking the usual considerations," Harker adds. "Turned down good money last week, said they'd arrest me if I offered again." Mucklow's expression grows increasingly somber as he absorbs these reports. "We need to talk to Kimber," he says finally. "This affects all of us. Blinders, Brummagem boys, everyone running anything in this city." The mention of Billy Kimber sends a ripple of tension around the table. Kimber's reputation has grown almost mythical in recent months, his operations expanding, his methods becoming more sophisticated and, when necessary, more brutal. An alliance with him would bring protection but also submission. The Peaky blinders would become subordinates rather than independent operators. "You think he'll help?" Groom asks skeptically. "What's in it for him?" "Oh, stability," Mucklow replies. "Kimber's building something bigger than street gangs and protection rackets. He needs Birmingham quiet and predictable for his racecourse operations. Rafter's crackdown threatens that." The conversation shifts to logistics. How to approach Kimber, what to offer, who should go. You listen without contributing, your mind still processing the image of Eddie being led away, bloodied and handcuffed, and the crowd's approving response to Rafter's declaration. For the first time since joining the Blinders, you feel a sense of genuine precariousness in your position. The rules that governed Birmingham's underworld for decades are changing, the careful balance between law and criminality tipping in ways no one can fully predict. "You're quiet," Mucklow observes suddenly, his attention returning to you. "Something else on your mind?" You hesitate, then decide honesty, or a version of it, is best. Just thinking about Eddie and about how quickly the crowd turned. 1 minute we're collecting as usual, the next they're cheering our arrest. Mucklow's expression softens slightly. "People are sheep," he says. "They follow whoever shows strength. Yesterday it was us, today it's Rafter, tomorrow," he shrugs. "That's what we need to decide." The meeting concludes with assignments. Groom to arrange a meeting with Kimber's representatives, Harker to warn other blinders about increased police presence, you to continue collections but with greater caution. Business continues despite Eddie's arrest and Rafter's challenge. The Peaky blinders have survived previous police crackdowns. They'll survive this one too. Or so you tell yourself as you leave the garrison and head toward home, the day's collections heavy in your pocket, but doubt has taken root, a persistent whisper questioning the path you've chosen and where it ultimately leads. At home, spring has brought subtle changes to the cramped back-to-back house. Windows, sealed against winter's chill for months, now stand open to admit fresh air. Your mother has placed a small pot with a sprouting green onion on the windowsill, a touch of life amid the urban grime. Your siblings play in the court outside rather than huddling by the fire, their voices carrying through the open door. Your mother looks up from her mending as you enter, her smile warm but tinged with the perpetual worry that has marked her face since you joined the blinders. "You're home early," she observes, echoing Mucklow's earlier words. "Finished my rounds quicker than expected," you reply, the half-truth coming automatically now. She nods, returning to her work. After a moment, she says casually, "Did you hear about the excitement at the Bull Ring? Mrs. Cartwright from 2 doors down was there. Said they arrested one of those Peaky blinders right in front of everyone." Your stomach tightens. "Did she? Didn't see anything myself." Your mother's hands still, her eyes rising to meet yours. "She said the police chief made a speech, said things are going to change in Birmingham." The unasked question hangs in the air between you. Though your mother has never directly acknowledged your involvement with the blinders, her awareness of it shadows every conversation, every interaction. "Things are always changing," you say non-committally. "Nature of the city, isn't it?" She studies you for a long moment, then sighs softly. "Just be careful," she says, the phrase that has become her constant refrain. "Whatever you're mixed up in, be careful." The rest of the day passes quietly. You help your brother repair a loose floorboard, listen to your sister's excited chatter about a kitten that's taken up residence in the courtyard, eat a simple but filling dinner of bread and stew. Normal family life, a pocket of ordinary existence that seems increasingly disconnected from your life as a Peaky blinder. As evening approaches, restlessness drives you back onto the streets. The spring twilight lingers, the days noticeably longer now. Gas lamps flicker to life as you walk without clear destination, your thoughts circling between Eddie's arrest, Rafter's declaration, and Mucklow's decision to approach Kimber. Your wandering takes you to the canal, where barges still move sluggishly through the darkening water, transporting goods that form the lifeblood of industrial Birmingham. You lean against a wall, watching a bargeman navigate his vessel beneath a narrow bridge, his movements practiced and precise. "Didn't think I'd find you here." The voice startles you from your reverie. You turn to find Mr. Jenkins standing a few paces away, a pipe clenched between his teeth, the smoke curling upward in the still evening air. "Mr. Jenkins," you acknowledge, surprised but not displeased by the encounter. He moves to stand beside you, both of you now watching the canal traffic in companionable silence. After a while, he speaks again. "Heard about the excitement at the Bull Ring today." News travels fast in Birmingham, especially news involving the Peaky blinders. "Seems everyone has," you reply cautiously. Mr. Jenkins puffs on his pipe, the tobacco glowing orange in the gathering dusk. "Young lad arrested, Eddie something, known associate of Thomas Mucklow's crew." His eyes slide sideways to gauge your reaction. "Your crew?" There's little point in denial. "What of it?" Nothing, he says mildly. "Just an observation, that and the fact that Chief Constable Rafter seems determined to make examples of blinders wherever he finds them. The warning is clear, if indirect. And why do you care?" Mr. Jenkins taps his pipe against the wall, dislodging ash that falls like grey snow to the ground. "Told you before, I remember the boy who worked for me. Decent lad, smart, could have made something of himself." "I have made something of myself," you counter, a defensive edge creeping into your voice. "Got money in my pocket, respect on the streets, my family eats regular now, has coal for the fire." "For how long, though?" Jenkins asks quietly. "Rafter's not like the old police chiefs. He's not taking bribes, not looking the other way, and he's got the city council behind him, influential people who want Birmingham cleaned up, made respectable." You've heard similar assessments from Mucklow, though expressed with less concern for your welfare. "The blinders have been around longer than Rafter. We'll outlast him too." Jenkins shakes his head slowly. "Maybe, maybe not. But even if the blinders survive, what about you personally? Prison's a hard place for a young man. Or worse." The worse hangs in the air between you, the unspoken fate of those who cross the wrong people or find themselves on the losing side when power shifts in Birmingham's underworld. Why are you telling me this, you ask, genuinely curious about his persistent interest in your welfare. Jenkins refills his pipe, the ritual giving him time to consider his answer. Let's just say I've seen how this story ends before. My brother, as I told you, others too. Young men who thought they were invincible, who believed the streets would always be theirs. He lights the fresh tobacco, drawing until it glows evenly. They were wrong. You want to dismiss his concerns, to reassure yourself that your situation is different, that you're smarter or luckier or better protected than those who came before. But Eddie's arrest and Rafter's public challenge have shaken your confidence, forced you to confront the precariousness of your position. What would you have me do? The question emerges more vulnerable than you intended. Go back to running errands for pennies? Watch my family struggle through another winter without enough food or heat? Jenkins regards you thoughtfully, smoke wreathing his head in the fading light. There are other paths, legitimate work that pays decent wages. I know people in the jewellery quarter always looking for apprentices with quick hands and sharp eyes, or the new automobile factories opening up. They pay better than the old ironworks, and it's honest labour. The suggestion that you might simply walk away from the blinders, start fresh in legitimate employment, is both tempting and terrifying. Tempting because it offers escape from the increasing dangers of gang life under Rafter's crackdown. Terrifying because it would mean surrendering the identity, the power, and the income you've built over these months. And there's another consideration, one Jenkins doesn't mention, but that weighs heavily on your mind. The blinders don't look kindly on desertion. Leaving would mean looking over your shoulder not just for Rafter's police, but for your former associates, men who know where you live, where your family sleeps. It's not that simple, you say finally. Jenkins sighs, a sound of resignation rather than surprise. It never is. But the offer stands if you ever decide you want out. I can make introductions, speak for your character. The conversation shifts to more neutral topics. The spring weather, the price of coal, predictions for Birmingham City's football prospects, normal talk between acquaintances, a brief respite from the weightier matters that occupy your thoughts. As you part ways later, Jenkins heading home to his rooms above the pawn shop and you back towards Small Heath, his parting words follow you through the darkening streets. Remember, there's always a choice. Might not be an easy one, might come with consequences you'd rather not face. But it's still a choice. The same words he spoke to you months ago after the confrontation with Sergeant Willis. They resonated then, but they strike deeper now as Birmingham's underworld stands on the brink of transformation and your place within it grows increasingly uncertain. Night has fully descended by the time you reach Small Heath, the streets quieter now, though never truly silent. A dog barks in the distance. Somewhere, a baby cries. Two men argue outside a pub, their words slurred by drink, but their anger clear in the rising volume of their voices. The familiar soundscape of your neighbourhood, the backdrop to your life before and after joining the blinders. But tonight, it strikes you differently. You notice details previously overlooked. The weariness in a passing woman's face, the hopelessness in an old man's stooped shoulders. The hunger in a child's eyes as she peers through a shop window at food she cannot afford. This is Birmingham, your Birmingham, a city of stark contrasts and limited options for those born into its working-class districts. The Peaky blinders didn't create these conditions, they merely exploited them, as did the factory owners, the slum landlords, the pawnbrokers, charging exorbitant interest on desperation. In this light, your choice to join the Blinders seems less a moral failing than a practical response to an unjust system. Yet the unease persists, a nagging sense that there must be better alternatives than either grinding poverty or criminal enterprise. As you approach your street, a figure detaches from the shadows of a doorway, causing your heart to skip a beat before you recognize Harker. His presence here, away from his usual haunts, signals something important. "Been looking for you," he says without preamble. "Mucklow wants everyone at the garrison, now." "What's happened?" you ask, already turning to retrace your steps. Harker falls into step beside you, his voice low despite the empty street. "Eddie talked. Police raided 3 safe houses, arrested a dozen blinders, and Kimber's agreed to meet tonight." The news hits like a physical blow. Eddie talking to the police? It seems impossible. The code of silence is fundamental to gang operations, enforced by the harshest penalties for those who break it. "You sure?" you press. "Eddie wouldn't. Rafter's men worked him over proper," Harker interrupts grimly. "Word is they broke both arms, threatened worse if he didn't give them something useful. He held out longer than most would have." The implication is clear. Eddie's betrayal, while serious, is being viewed with a degree of understanding given the circumstances. Still, it complicates an already dangerous situation, especially with the Kimber meeting now imminent. "What does Mucklow want with me?" you ask, as you quicken your pace toward the garrison. Harker's expression is unreadable in the darkness. He's choosing who goes to meet Kimber, wants his most reliable men with him. Pride mingles with apprehension at this information. Being selected for the Kimber meeting represents a significant elevation in your status within the Blinders. It also places you at the centre of what could be a pivotal moment in Birmingham's criminal hierarchy, with all the associated risks. When you say Kimber agreed to meet tonight, he's already there, Harker confirms. At the garrison, private room in the back, Mucklow's gathering his people now. The news accelerates your steps. Billy Kimber, in person, waiting at the garrison, the man whose name has become synonymous with ambition and ruthlessness in Birmingham's underworld, whose operations extend far beyond the city limits, whose influence reaches into police stations and city halls. This meeting could determine the future not just of the Peaky Blinders, but of all criminal enterprise in Birmingham, and somehow, improbably, you find yourself walking toward the centre of it, your heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation that drowns out the persistent voice of doubt that has followed you since Eddie's arrest. The garrison comes into view, its windows glowing with gaslight that spills onto the dark street. Inside waits Billy Kimber, and with him, perhaps, answers to the questions that have plagued you since this morning. What happens next in this changing Birmingham? And where will you stand when the dust settles? Only one way to find out. You straighten your cap, adjust your jacket, and follow Harker into the pub, stepping willingly into whatever future awaits. The garrison's main room falls silent as you enter with Harker, dozens of eyes turning to assess the newcomers before conversation cautiously resumes. The pub is more crowded than you've ever seen it, filled with Peaky Blinders from across Birmingham, all summoned by Mucklow for this unprecedented meeting with Billy Kimber. You recognise most of the faces, men you've worked alongside over the months, fought beside in street brawls and collection disputes. Their expressions reflect the gravity of the situation, tense, wary, some trying to mask apprehension behind false bravado. Eddie's arrest and subsequent betrayal have shaken everyone, a stark reminder of their vulnerability in this changing city. Harker guides you through the crowd toward the back of the pub, where a closed door separates the main room from a private parlour. 2 men stand guard outside, larger and better dressed than the typical blinder. Kimber's men, clearly, their bulging jackets suggesting weapons concealed beneath. One of them gives you and Harker a cursory inspection before nodding toward the door. Mucklow's waiting. The private parlour is thick with tobacco smoke that stings your eyes and catches in your throat. A gas lamp on the wall casts yellow light over a scene that immediately burns itself into your memory. Thomas Mucklow and George Groom seated at one side of a square table, Billy Kimber and an unknown man at the other. Kimber is not what you expected. The fearsome reputation had conjured images of a physically imposing figure, but the man before you is of average height and build, impeccably dressed in a suit that costs more than your family's entire possessions combined. His face is unremarkable, except for his eyes, cold, calculating, assessing you with the detached interest of a butcher appraising livestock. These are the last two, Mucklow says, gesturing to you and Harker, my most reliable men. Kimber nods, showing neither approval nor disapproval, merely accepting the information. Sit, he says, his accent marking him as Birmingham-born despite his elevated status. Let's get on with it. You take a seat beside Groom, keeping your face carefully neutral despite your racing heart. In this small room sits the man who could determine your fate and the fate of the Peaky blinders as a whole with a word or gesture. As I was saying, Kimber continues, addressing Mucklow as if there had been no interruption, Rafter's crackdown changes things. He's got backing from the city council, from businessmen who want Birmingham cleaned up for investment. He's bringing in officers from London, men with no local ties, no understanding of how things work here. Mucklow nods grimly. We've noticed they're refusing the usual considerations, making examples of our people. It's more than that, Kimber says, leaning forward. Rafter's targeting the racecourses specifically. He knows that's where the real money is, in the betting. He's putting men at Worcester, at Uttoxeter, at all the Midlands courses, making it harder to operate. This explains Kimber's willingness to meet. His operations extend far beyond Birmingham streets to the racecourses throughout England, where illegal bookmaking generates profits that dwarf anything the blinders make through protection rackets or petty theft. So, what are you proposing? Mucklow asks, coming directly to the point. Kimber exchanges a glance with his companion before responding. An alliance, my organisation and the Peaky blinders working together instead of competing. Combined resources, combined manpower, combined intelligence about police movements. And who runs this alliance? Groom interjects, voicing the question undoubtedly on Mucklow's mind. Kimber's smile doesn't reach his eyes. I do, of course, but the blinders maintain control of their territories under my overall direction. Your men become part of my organisation with all the benefits and protections that entails. And if we refuse? Mucklow asks, his tone carefully neutral. The temperature in the room seems to drop several degrees as Kimber's expression hardens. Then you face Rafter alone, and me, the old arrangement where different gangs control different parts of Birmingham. That's finished. The police have seen to that. Either we consolidate, present a united front, or we all go down separately. It's not a bluff, you realise with a chill. Kimber has the resources to eliminate the Peaky blinders if they refuse his offer, especially with the police already applying pressure. This isn't a negotiation between equals, but an absorption, the smaller fish being swallowed by the larger. Mucklow seems to recognise this reality as well. His face reveals nothing, but his fingers drum a thoughtful rhythm on the table as he considers Kimber's proposal. What happens to my men, he asks finally, to their livelihoods? They continue what they're doing. Collections, enforcement, the usual business, but with better organisation, better intelligence, better protection if they're arrested. Kimber gestures to his silent companion. Roberts here has judges and magistrates on his payroll. Charges can be reduced. Evidence can disappear. Witnesses can change their minds about testifying. This is a level of sophistication beyond anything the blinders have achieved. Corruption reaching into the legal system itself, providing a layer of protection that street-level bribes to constables can't match. And Eddie? Harker asks suddenly. What about him? A shadow passes across Kimber's face. That's unfortunate business. The man talked, gave up safe houses, operations. Can't have that, alliance or no alliance. The implication is clear, and a chill runs through you. Eddie's fate is sealed, regardless of what happens in this room tonight. Once released, if he's released, he won't survive long in Birmingham. Mucklow catches your eye briefly, a silent communication passing between you. He's going to accept Kimber's offer. He has little choice, but the terms, the details of how the blinders will fit into this new organisation, those remain to be negotiated. We need assurances, Mucklow says, turning back to Kimber. Guarantees about territory, about our people's positions, about how profits are shared. Naturally, Kimber agrees smoothly. I'm a businessman, not a tyrant. Fair treatment for those who are loyal and competent. What follows is a detailed negotiation that stretches into the night, territories defined, responsibilities assigned, percentages of various operations allocated between Kimber's organisation and the blinders. You contribute when your knowledge of specific areas or operations is relevant, but otherwise observe in silence, absorbing the reality of this new order taking shape before you. By the time agreements are reached and hands are shaken, the gas lamp has burned low and exhaustion weighs on every man in the room. But beneath the fatigue, you sense something else, a new tension, a realignment of loyalties and expectations that will reshape Birmingham's underworld for years to come. As the meeting concludes, Kimber beckons you specifically to his side, a gesture that draws curious looks from the others. Mucklow says you're sharp, he says, studying your face with those cold, assessing eyes. Says you understand how things work, adapt quickly to changing circumstances. You maintain his gaze despite the intimidation factor. I try to, sir. Good. We'll need men like that in the days ahead. He passes you a card with an address written in elegant script. Come see me tomorrow afternoon. There may be opportunities for advancement in the new arrangement. The card feels heavy in your hand, weighted with implications beyond its physical presence. This is an elevation beyond anything you could have imagined when you joined the blinders last autumn. Direct recognition from Billy Kimber himself, the possibility of a position in his inner circle. Outside the garrison, the night has deepened, stars barely visible through Birmingham's perpetual haze of industrial smoke. The streets are quiet now, most honest citizens long abed, even the usual nighttime denizens of pubs and gambling dens having sought their rest. Mucklow walks beside you for a few blocks, both of you silent, processing the night's events. Finally, he speaks. Kimber's taken a shine to you. That's good and bad. How so? You ask, the card still clutched in your hand. Good because it means opportunity, protection. Bad because he'll expect more from you than I ever did. Loyalty, above all, absolute loyalty. Mucklow stops, turning to face you directly. Kimber doesn't forgive mistakes or tolerate divided allegiances. Once you're his man, you're his completely. The warning is clear, delivered with a surprising degree of concern from a man not known for sentimentality. You think I shouldn't go tomorrow? Mucklow shrugs. Didn't say that, just making sure you understand what you're walking into. Kimber operates differently than we do. More money, more power, but also more risk if things go wrong. And things can always go wrong. You consider his words as you resume walking. The The path before you has suddenly forked, offering choices you never anticipated. Continue as a Peaky blinder under Mucklow's direct leadership, now subordinate to Kimber's organization. Advance into Kimber's inner circle with all the opportunities and dangers that entails. Or the option that whispers at the edges of your consciousness: walk away entirely. Take Jenkins up on his offer of legitimate work in the jewellery quarter or the automobile factories. Each choice carries consequences, not just for you but for your family, who have grown accustomed to the relative comfort your blinder earnings provide. Each represents a different vision of your future in Birmingham, the city that shaped you, constrained you, and now offers these divergent paths. Think about it overnight, Mucklow advises, as you reach the point where your routes home separate. Decisions like this shouldn't be rushed. You nod, grateful for his unexpected wisdom. What about you? What will you do under Kimber? A sardonic smile crosses Mucklow's face. Adapt, survive. It's what we Brummies do, isn't it? The city changes, the factories change, the police change. We change with them, or we get swept away. With that philosophical observation, so atypical of his usual pragmatism, he claps you on the shoulder and turns away, disappearing into the labyrinth of dark streets that make up Small Heath. Your own journey home takes you past familiar landmarks transformed by night into mysterious shadows. The ironworks where your father toils daily, now silent until morning. The church whose bells mark the hours of your life. The canal that carries goods and secrets through the heart of the city. Birmingham sleeps, or at least pretends to, its industrial pulse temporarily quieted, though never fully stilled. In a few hours, the factories will roar to life again. The streets will fill with workers, the markets will buzz with commerce. The eternal cycle of the city, unchanging, despite the personal dramas played out within its sooty embrace. Your home is dark when you arrive, your family long asleep. You move through the small rooms with practiced stealth, avoiding the creaking floorboard near the stairs, the loose nail by your parents' bed. In the dim light filtering through the uncurtained window, you can make out the sleeping forms of your siblings, their faces peaceful in repose, untroubled by the decisions that weigh on you. Sleep eludes you despite your exhaustion. You lie on your thin mattress, staring at the ceiling, turning over the events of the day and the choices before you. Kimber's card rests on the floor beside you, its presence a tangible reminder of tomorrow's appointment and all it represents. In the quiet darkness, other voices intrude on your thoughts. Mr. Jenkins offering a different path, your mother's constant refrain to be careful, Rafter declaring war on Birmingham's gangs, Eddie's betrayal under police pressure, Mucklow's warning about Kimber's expectations of absolute loyalty. The hours pass, marked by the distant church bells. Midnight, 1, 2. Your mind continues its restless circling until, somewhere near 3, exhaustion finally claims you, pulling you into a fitful sleep filled with fragmented dreams of pursuing police and shadowy figures in flat caps. Dawn arrives too soon, grey light seeping through the window and across the floor of the crowded room. Your body aches from the night's poor rest, but your mind feels clearer somehow, as if the tumultuous thoughts have settled during sleep into some semblance of order. You rise quietly, dress, and slip out of the house before the rest of your family wakes. The early morning streets have a different character than those of night. Workers beginning their day, shopkeepers preparing to open, the first tendrils of smoke rising from factory chimneys as furnaces are stoked for the day's production. Your feet carry you almost without conscious direction to the canal, where the still water reflects the lightening sky and the silhouettes of industrial buildings. You find a quiet spot and sit, watching barges begin their daily journeys, listening to the city wake around you. This moment of solitude, rare in your crowded existence, provides space for reflection without the immediate pressures of gang obligations or family responsibilities. Here, with only the water and the gradually brightening sky as witnesses, you can examine the choices before you with a clarity that eluded you in the smoke-filled room of the garrison or the cramped confines of your home. Kimber offers advancement, power, greater financial reward, but at the cost of deeper entanglement in Birmingham's criminal world, with higher stakes and harsher consequences for failure. Continuing as a blinder under Mucklow means the familiar routine, but now with the added complication of Kimber's overarching authority and Rafter's intensified policing. And then there's Jenkins's offer. Legitimate work, an apprenticeship in the jewellery quarter, or a position in the automobile factories. Lower pay initially, certainly, but also lower risk. A chance to build something that doesn't depend on intimidation and violence. That doesn't require constantly looking over your shoulder for police or rival gang members. As the sun breaches the horizon, casting long shadows across the canal, you reach into your pocket and withdraw Kimber's card. The elegant script catches the early light, the address promising entree to a world of power and prosperity beyond anything you've known. In your other pocket rests the money collected yesterday from the bullring stallholders, payment extracted through fear rather than fair exchange. Blood money, as old Harris called it, though you've become adept at rationalising its collection as simply the way Birmingham works. But Birmingham is changing. Rafter's crackdown, Kimber's consolidation of power, the public's growing resistance to the protection rackets, all signal a transformation in the city's underworld that will reshape the opportunities and dangers for those within it. The question that has haunted you since Eddie's arrest returns with new urgency. What kind of man will you become in this changing landscape? The honourable worker your mother hoped for, the pragmatic survivor your father exemplifies, or something else entirely, shaped by the violent realities of life under Kimber's regime? A barge passes slowly, its wake disturbing the canal's surface into ripples that distort the reflected sky. The bargeman nods to you, one early riser acknowledging another, before returning his attention to the narrow waterway ahead. His simple focus, navigating the canal, delivering his cargo, completing his day's work, strikes you with unexpected force. There's dignity in such straightforward purpose, in labour that produces rather than extracts, that builds rather than threatens. You look again at Kimber's card, then at the money in your other hand. Symbols of different paths, different futures, different versions of yourself. The choice is yours, as Jenkins reminded you. Not an easy one, certainly, but still a choice. Rising from your canal-side perch, you make a decision that surprises even yourself. You tear Kimber's card into small pieces and let them fall into the water, watching as the current carries them away, dissolving the elegant script into pulp. The protection money follows, coins splashing into the depths where they'll rest undisturbed until some future dredging perhaps brings them to light again. A small fortune by your standards, but the unburdening feels worth the cost. Your path takes you not toward the garrison or Kimber's address, but to Jenkins' pawn shop, where you arrive just as he's unlocking the door for the day's business. His surprise at your early appearance gives way to understanding as you explain your decision. I want out, you say simply. If your offer still stands about the jewellery quarter or the automobile factories, I'd like to take it. Jenkins's lined face betrays neither triumph nor relief, only a quiet satisfaction. It stands, he confirms, though you should know what you're giving up and what risks you're taking by walking away. I know, you assure him, and you do. The blinders, and now Kimber, don't look kindly on desertion. There will be consequences, perhaps dangerous ones, but continuing down that path carries its own dangers, ones that have become increasingly difficult to justify. What about your family? Jenkins asks. The money will be less, at least at first. You've considered this already during your sleepless night. We managed before I joined the Blinders. We'll manage again. My brother's old enough to find work too now. Between us, we'll get by. Jenkins nods, accepting your resolution. I know a man at Lucas Electric's looking for apprentices. Smart lad like you could do well there. Futures in automobiles and electrical equipment, not protection rackets and street fighting. The transition won't be easy, explaining to your family, avoiding blinder territories when possible, perhaps even moving to a different part of Birmingham eventually. But as you leave Jenkins's shop with a letter of introduction to his contact at Lucas, a weight lifts from your shoulders that you hadn't fully recognised until its absence. The Birmingham that greets you outside seems somehow brighter, more full of possibility than the city you've navigated as a Peaky blinder. The same soot-stained buildings, the same crowded streets, the same industrial clamour, but viewed through a different lens, one not coloured by gang allegiances and territorial disputes. Your decision may prove costly. Mucklow will see it as betrayal, Kimber as an insult. The money will be tighter, the work harder in many ways, but as you walk toward home to share your choice with your family, each step feels right in a way that has become increasingly rare in recent months. Birmingham in the spring of 1891 stands at a crossroads, much like you. Chief Constable Rafter's reforms are reshaping the relationship between police and the criminal gangs that have long operated with impunity. Billy Kimber's consolidation of power heralds a new era of organised crime, more sophisticated and far-reaching than the street-level operations of the Peaky blinders. And you, a small figure in this industrial landscape, have chosen your own path forward. Neither the continued descent into Kimber's world nor the uncertain protection of Mucklow's diminished blinders, but a third option that offers something rarer than money or power. The chance to build rather than destroy, to create rather than intimidate. As you near home, the sun now fully risen over Birmingham's skyline of factory chimneys and church spires, you acknowledge the challenges ahead. The city has shaped you, hardened you, taught you lessons both brutal and valuable, but it hasn't defined you completely. That power, the power to determine what kind of man you'll become, remains yours alone. Your mother looks up as you enter, surprise registering at your early return and the absence of your Peaky blinder uniform, the cap, the tailored jacket, the polished boots all left behind or discarded. "What's happened?" she asks, concern immediate in her voice. You sit at the small table, gesture for her to join you. "I've made a decision," you begin, and proceed to explain the choice you've made, the apprenticeship opportunity, the change in direction. Her initial skepticism gives way to cautious hope as you outline your reasoning. When you finish, she reaches across the table to take your hand, her work-roughened fingers closing around yours with surprising strength. "I always knew," she says softly, "that you were better than the path you'd chosen, knew the real you was still in there somewhere." Her words echo Jenkins from months ago, the faith both had maintained in the person beneath the Peaky blinder exterior. Their belief, it seems, was not misplaced, though it took the tumultuous events of recent days to bring that person back to the surface. Later, as you prepare for bed after your first day of legitimate labour in nearly a year, exhaustion settles into your muscles, a different kind of tiredness than that experienced after blinder activities, somehow cleaner and more satisfying despite the lower pay and longer hours. The small room feels different too, though nothing has physically changed. The walls that once seemed to press in claustrophobically now offer security rather than confinement. The sounds of your family settling for the night, your mother's quiet humming, your sister's whispered conversations with her doll, your brother's soft snoring, create a symphony of ordinary life that suddenly seems extraordinary in its simple normalcy. Outside, Birmingham continues its ceaseless rhythm, the distant clang of factory work, the occasional shout or laughter from the street, the rumble of late carts on cobblestones, the city that bred the Peaky Blinders, that shaped Billy Kimber's ambitions, that provoked rafters, reforming zeal, carries on its industrial existence regardless of individual choices or changing criminal hierarchies. But within this small back-to-back house in Small Heath, something has shifted. A different future has been chosen, a different path embarked upon. Not an easy one, certainly, but one that allows for rest without the weight of violence and intimidation pressing on your conscience. As sleep approaches, you find yourself thinking not of Kimber or Mucklow or the Peaky Blinders, but of what you might learn tomorrow at Lucas Electrics, of the mechanisms and devices you'll help create, of the skills you'll develop that build rather than destroy. Birmingham has always been a city of makers, metalworkers, jewellers, gunsmiths, now automobile and electrical equipment manufacturers. For too long you channeled that creative heritage into the wrong directions. Now perhaps you can reclaim it in more constructive ways. The church bells strike midnight as you drift towards sleep, marking the end of this momentous day and the beginning of another. Tomorrow brings its own challenges, avoiding former associates, learning new skills, adjusting to legitimate employment, stricter schedules and lower compensation. But it also brings possibilities that were closing off in your previous life. The chance to walk the streets without constantly watching for police or rival gang members. The opportunity to develop abilities beyond intimidation and violence. The potential to become someone your family can acknowledge openly rather than through the fiction of working for a local businessman. Sleep comes easier than it has in months, your body relaxing into the thin mattress, your mind releasing the constant vigilance required of a Peaky Blinder. Dreams, when they come, contain no pursuing police or shadowy figures in flat caps, only the ordinary surrealism of untroubled rest. Birmingham's industrial heart beats on through the night, its rhythms unchanged by your individual choice. The Peaky Blinders continue their operations, now under Kimber's ultimate authority. Rafter pursues his campaign to clean up the city's streets. The eternal dance of power and survival plays out across the sooty stage of England's second city. But you sleep, truly sleep, for the first time since donning the peaked cap last autumn. Tomorrow brings a new chapter, not just for Birmingham as it navigates the changing criminal landscape, but for you personally as you step away from the path that once seemed inevitable. The city made you, shaped you, offered you limited choices in its industrial embrace, but in the end, the final choice was yours, to continue as a Peaky Blinder under Kimber's new regime, or to seek a different future amid Birmingham's smoky horizons. You chose the latter, with all its uncertainties and challenges, and as consciousness fades into the welcome oblivion of honest sleep, that choice feels right in ways that transcend rational calculation, a step not just toward a different livelihood, but toward a different self, one more aligned with the person you might have become had circumstances been kinder from the start. Birmingham sleeps around you, its industrial pulse temporarily quieted until dawn brings another day of manufacturing and commerce, of struggle and aspiration. Within this momentary stillness, possibilities exist that daylight often obscures, the chance to redefine oneself, to change direction, to choose a different path through the city's crowded streets. You've seized that chance, turned away from the allure of the Peaky Blinders and toward the more modest but ultimately more sustainable promise of legitimate work. The road ahead won't be easy, but as sleep claims you completely, there's peace in knowing it's a road of your own choosing. And in Birmingham in 1891, where poverty and industrial exploitation limit options for so many, the power to choose one's own path is perhaps the most valuable possession of all, more precious than the protection money now resting at the bottom of the canal, more significant than Kimber's torn card dissolving in the water, more enduring than the brief authority conferred by a peaked cap and a feared reputation. In the end, Birmingham is what it has always been, a city of contrasts and compromises, of industry and poverty, of opportunity and constraint. The Peaky Blinders emerged from these conditions, a response to limited options and systemic inequalities. Your journey through their ranks and ultimate departure reflects both the allure they offered and the cost they extracted. As the night deepens toward dawn, your breathing slows and deepens, your body finally surrendering to the restorative embrace of untroubled sleep. Tomorrow brings new challenges, but also new possibilities, a future neither predetermined by Birmingham's harsh realities nor constrained by the Peaky Blinders' violent code. Your own path, chosen despite the forces arrayed against such choice. Your own future, uncertain but authentic. Your own life, reclaimed from the peaked caps and razor blades that give the blinders their fearsome name. In this moment of peaceful sleep amid the industrial heart of Victorian England, that reclamation feels like victory enough.